Welcome, everyone, to today's Audit Tuesday. In this session, YouAttest will discuss with Stacey Cameron on the topic of GRC fatigue, GRC being governance, risk, and compliance. Stacey is a well-known compliance and security expert out of Washington, D.C. Welcome, Stacey.
Hi, Bill. Glad to be here.
Good. Well, first of all, Stacey, can you please introduce yourself to the Audit Tuesday audience?
Absolutely. So nice to meet you all again. I'm Stacey Cameron. I'm CEO of Cycam Strategies. My background is, it's a mixture. It's a hodgepodge. So educationally, I have a degree in computer science. I've been working in the information security field for almost 20 years now. I've been a federal employee. I've supported federal civilian governments, federal law enforcement, Department of Defense, as well as on the commercial and public and private sector, been able to work with a lot of different industries, whether it's educational, financial, healthcare, even work with international companies doing business with the US government. So lots of different areas of experience, all surrounding whether it's cybersecurity aspects, with a very high focus on the compliance and regulatory field. So that's just a little bit about me. So again,
you were in Homeland Security, weren't you?
yes, I was at specifically ICE. I did a lot of support there with even a lot on their mobile applications and development of new applications, and even helping them get some applications into the cloud for the first time before I left there as a federal employee.
Yeah, y'all, Stacey's being modest. Look up Stacey Cameron and the Department of Homeland Security, et cetera. She got a lot of awards. Take it away, Bill.
Sure. So Stacey, enterprises are often said to be experiencing the concept of GRC fatigue. What does that mean to you?
Oh, yes, GRC for fatigue. I'm very familiar with that. So actually, I come across it quite often just in the field that I'm working in. But sometimes when you're working with different senior leadership or the executive boards and what have you, they start some of them self-identify that they are undergoing GRC fatigue, others that you identify for them while you're looking into their environment and their enterprise and realizing a lot of this is coming from that governance, risk, and compliance fatigue. So when I'm talking about what GRC fatigue is, it's usually when you're overwhelmed or exhausted, often because things are being under supported, and a lot of exhaustion comes through not just going through your audits, but maintaining these standards and keeping up with the changes that come out with the different regulations over the course of the different years. So when you're trying to keep up with those type of evolving complications, sometimes they don't always integrate well with their existing processes. They may start getting ahead of the tools and technologies that you have in place. Sometimes they get ahead of your budget, right? Sometimes things become very manual, and when things become manual, then that means someone who's working on something else does not have that full attention and time to do either their standard day-to-day operations, or now that they're really experiencing this exhaustion from keeping up with these standards. So very well familiar with it, and it's a thing, and it's okay because there's lots of things that we can do to assist and help with that.
Yeah, right. So these companies are being hit with new compliance measures and new modifications to the existing measures, and are often lost on how and where to start, correct?
Yeah, so often lost on where to start, when, how to pivot, what to discontinue, where to begin. In some instances, you'll find executives well-versed in certain regulations, such as maybe they're familiar with what's required with SOC 2 or with privacy under GDPR. And now either due to the change in business trajectory or adding on various elements of the business, maybe now they have to do something like a HIPAA or a FedRAMP, which introduces totally different processes yet there is some overlap. So then you're sitting there wondering, okay, I don't want to do double work, but how do I deal with this as well as meeting the standards with all the different regulatory providers? So, and then you have those, for instance, let's say if those that are PCI DSS, right? So we know that we're in 4.0 now. So a lot of people moving from 3.2 to 4.0, it was a large shift if you weren't ready to prepare for what was being required from the latest standard. So just a lot of times of being able to adapt and figure out where exactly how do you focus? Where do you start? And if you don't have that internal expertise, sometimes you definitely start feeling that exhaustion a little bit more.
So what is needed is an outsider to help with these efforts, correct?
Absolutely. And I'm somewhat partial, but yes, absolutely. I find it super beneficial, especially if you do not have the resources internally. Seeking external advisory services is super helpful, right? No one is expected to be an expert on all matters GRC in all regulatory areas, right? So those are unicorns. Yes. So and even the best in their own field will self-educate, right? So you find these directors and VPs or what have you trying to stay ahead of the curve. But often the best solution is just to engage a very knowledgeable third party, right? So, and many experts will say and attest to that, like, yes, it will go a lot faster, a lot smoother, allows you to focus on your day-to-day operations while you bring in the expertise to help you with whatever is being required. And I always love giving examples. So I'll give a story of a client that I worked with, and at one point, maybe I would say 5 months or so prior to their audit, we were discussing things that were required, and they're like, okay, we need to do X, Y, Z. I think I can handle this internally. And I said, okay, these are some things you need to be prepared, but let me know if we can assist. So long story short, the audit came and got halted, right? Because certain things needed to occur. And by not engaging a third party initially, then sometimes the third party can foresee things to say, hey, maybe you need to actually delay the start of your audit or what have you. A lot of times you look for an audit company that sometimes they can let you know before it gets too far into the weeds. But these things happen. It's okay. It doesn't happen to just one company. It happens often, but there's sometimes that you can look ahead and save a little bit of time and money on some of these situations. So yes, I definitely subscribe to engaging third parties.
And once the third party does the assessment and it's complete, then the enterprise can begin focusing on the relevant controls. Is that correct?
Absolutely. You definitely hit the nail on the head with that one. So again, I always tell people we're not trying to boil the ocean here. No sense, right? But being able to isolate whatever the delta is or prioritize and focus on the necessary tasks that are required to optimize your maintenance strategy, that is key. And being able to focus on just this isolated effort to move forward and try to minimize some of that fatigue.
All right. And Garrett, this is where YouAttest comes in.
Right.
Go ahead.
No, exactly. So yeah, I get excited. So this is where YouAttest comes in, because Stacey and the team came in, they did the assessment, they know what you have to do, they know which regulations you have to do, they know which controls you're lacking in, and then we work together and say, okay, for the identity control, let YouAttest handle those annoying user access reviews that are always so sloppily done. And where are they required? Everywhere. In Stacey's world, look at that background. CMMC 2.0 is now becoming mandatory. Rock and roll. What do you think's in there? User access review. But if you're publicly traded, that's Sarbanes-Oxley, you got to do this. If you're HIPAA, you got to be doing this. If you're under international guidelines like EU DORA and ISO 27001, you do user access reviews. Or if you care about security, you should do a user access review, right, Stacey? Old principle of least privilege. NIST CSF 2.0 PRAA05, principle of least privilege. Knock it out. And that's what we've done. At YouAttest, we've automated it so you can regularly do these user access reviews and not, make the whole enterprise break apart. Okay. Take it away, Bill.
Yeah, well, and really, the nice thing about YouAttest, it deploys in minutes, not months.
100%. We can get this stuff up and running in people's environments in 60 minutes, literally. And then it can start running reviews, not the literally quarters or year time frame.
All right. Okay. Stacey, this sounds relevant to these guidances and compliance measures. Is that right?
Yes, and getting up and running in minutes is actually, it's very desirable, right? So anyone in any enterprise organization, when you're implementing tools within your environment, being able to get it implemented, configured, and ready to go immediately is always a desirable effect, right? But when you look at it, and Garrett kind of mentioned this already, across all of your information security regulatory requirements, anything information security related is going to deal with your access controls and identity controls and the surrounding governance around those particular controls. And it's critical, right? So usually when you don't have those in place or you're missing elements of it, that's when you're going to get your medium to high and critical risk identified within your environment, whether it's through audit, whether it's through a risk assessment. And it's very, and sometimes look at it as, it's not really, I don't consider it trivial just because of how I see it's been done, but those user access reviews are needed within the environment. And there's so many different ways to do it. And there's ways that you can, to me, inadequately perform them. Even some of the tools that are out there don't adequately manage your user access review. So you have to really be key when you're really putting things into your environment. So using a tool like YouAttest where you can integrate and deal with, even if you have a segmented environment, you're still able to do these user access reviews. It's very critical to help you with not just implementing security within your environment, but being able to demonstrate that through audit and being able to provide sufficient evidence. And most importantly, optimize it on the actual people effort by letting technology take some of the places. Yes.
That's great. So let's wrap this up for today. How can the audience reach you?
Well, you can reach me by a number of ways. I'm on LinkedIn, so I'm Stacey Cameron on LinkedIn. You'll see my smiling face. I do adore to smile. You can also reach me through the company website. So you can go to www.cycam.io or info@cycam.io. So that's info@cycam.io. So you can reach me a number of different ways. I definitely understand the pains with GRC fatigue and a lot of other things under compliance and GRC in general. So feel free to reach out if you just want to chat it up or you have some questions or if you want to engage in some work too.
Well, thanks. And YouAttest can be reached at youattest.com or just email us at info@youattest.com. And thanks everybody for joining us today.
And thanks, Stacey. And when Stacey smiles, everyone smiles. At least
Well, thank you.
Thanks a lot.